All right, welcome to another Jags podcast, special edition. I got the one and only Treeb Talks on the video today. If you don't know Treeb is a Jaguars YouTuber, and me and him have been, I would say, friends since the beginning, right?
Friends since the beginning for sure.
So, just what's going on with you, man? Just tell us a little about yourself.
You know, man, I haven't made a Jags video in 3 or 4 days, which is the longest stretch I've gone without posting on YouTube. But I had to do a little work and a little kind of mental break from this YouTube game because it's not as easy as it looks. But I'm glad to be back with you on your channel. It's gonna be hype.
Yeah, I mean it's a grind. I mean you're more of a YouTuber, and we're more of like a podcast, like that. You know, we do long shows that people listen to, and we've always been following each other's stuff, and so for our fans that have never heard of you, kind of tell them what you do.
So I have the best and most original Jaguar content on the internet. No, so basically what happens is that I wanted to be a Jaguar YouTuber for a while, but I would just make like one video every 5 weeks and never, get any subscribers. But I put out videos 6 days a week, whether that be like position outlooks, top 10 lists. Sometimes I'm really reaching. Like in April, I made a video if the Jaguars took over the WrestleMania card. So, I mean, sometimes it's hard, but I'm reaching for topics, and I just try to give the people as much Jag content as they can, as much hot takes for the internet that they can handle.
So I've noticed you kind of like dabble in different, like you're talking about wrestling and all different sorts of things. What have you found the most success with the Jaguars?
So what do you mean by that question?
Like, where are you seeing the most success with viewers? Is it talking about the Jags? Or talking about wrestling?
Jaguars by far, and it's not even fucking close.
Okay.
Like I have to. Oh, can I cuss on here?
Oh, you can't, but it's okay. I'll bleep it on the podcast.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's hard, dude, because the wrestling content will get 20 views, but Jaguar content, no matter what, gets 100 or more every time. And it kind of sucks because once you get, I complain about this all the time, but once you get so niche and you want to kind of break out and do something else like once a week, nobody's on board with it. So, I mean, if I had to suggest something for YouTubers that are upcoming, if you're really passionate about something, do it, but don't do one topic for 6 days a week, because then people will just not watch your other content.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Or you could just do an hour show that people listen to probably 10 minutes of, and then
yeah, that's another thing too, is that viewer retention rate for even like YouTube videos. That's what I can't even. I listen to every single minute of another Jags podcast because it's the best podcast for the Jags on the net. Obviously, but even with like my Jags videos that are only 10 minutes long, like you look at it and like the average view duration is like 2:35, and it's like you guys just like watch the intro.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a little secret of our podcast is I'll actually go through. It takes like a minute to edit. It takes 2 minutes to edit a minute of a podcast, like if you're going through it. So I used to go through the entire podcast and edit the entire thing. Now I just go through the first 10 minutes and I edit it with like, I take out the ums and the dead space. So the first 10 minutes of our podcast sounds like amazing. And then you get to the next 50 minutes and it's like, oh wow, these guys definitely are not professional. So it's just funny, but I feel you there. All right, well, okay, I was gonna say enough about us.
Yeah.
Let's get to the Jags. Like everyone that's listening obviously wants to know about Jags. So
we totally blew this whole entire video because no one's gonna be watching this because the whole first 5 minutes we just talked about ourselves. They're already clicked off by this point.
Well, we have a pretty intense following. Like we have a good following that like us, and we're hoping to grow. So we'll see what happens. But give us your take on how you think the Jags will do this season.
I've released 2 videos of floor and ceiling wins for the Jaguars already this year. One was basically right when the season ended last year, and one was post-draft and free agency. I think the Jags did a good enough job in the draft and in free agency to sway my opinion a little bit, because at the beginning I didn't think the Jags were going to win more than like 7 games. Like, especially because I was a hardcore Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, got to get him guy. And I knew we weren't going to get him, so I was like, we're going to just choke, win 6 games, 7 games. But I think the more and more I've seen Nick Foles play and, just all these camps and stuff, and the more I'm just learning more and gaining more faith, I think the Jags should compete for the division. I'd say that as of right now, they're like a wild card team. I wouldn't say I still think the Colts are the best in that division right now.
Okay, so how many wins would you predict?
For the Jags, I'm going to say between 8 and 10, in between there. I think they go above 500. I don't think they have a losing record this year, but I say that every year, and I hope it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I'm a little more of an optimist when it comes to wins and losses. I'm a big fan of Nick Foles's. I think the Jags get over 10 wins next season because I think it all just comes down to injuries. And if we can stay healthy, I think we see a similar team like we did in 2017. And that team was good, and they had Blake Bortles. So I think you put that team with Nick Foles. I would have liked to see them upgrade the offense more. Obviously, Nick Foles was huge. Obviously, besides that, that's all they did. I mean, unless you count DJ Chark, or not DJ Chark, Chris Conley. I mean, it's not really – they didn't really do much. But do you think they did enough in free agency on the offensive side of the ball to improve?
I think they did enough as far as getting a better quarterback in the room. And I think that was that was the biggest thing is we needed a quarterback to change. I think that as far as wide receivers go, I was kind of hitting myself every day because I was like, the Jags still haven't signed a wide receiver that's worth anything. And I know that these guys do enough and are, I guess, enough for Nick Foles, but I would have liked to see us do more as far as getting a real playmaker or a real number 1 wide receiver. And I think also with the running backs, I don't know. I think there's some better running backs on the market also, but I mean, they did a solid job. I'm going to say there's room for improvement. I thought the draft was better than our free agency class. That's for sure.
So you just did your last video you posted was with a guy from Gen Jag, and you guys discussed the offensive line. What's your takeaway? Because we're about to do our offensive line preview episode this week. What's your takeaway from the offensive line this year?
Don't get hurt. It's literally simple as that. This offensive line right now, I'm so hype on it that I think it's a top 10 unit in the league, and I think it even has potential to go top 5. If they stay healthy and they play the way they're supposed to play all season, this offensive line is going to be the reason the Jaguars have success. They're going to give Nick Foles the time to throw the ball. They're going to open alleys for Leonard Fournette. This offensive line might make the entire offense better than, because if we had a mediocre offensive line, Foles getting sacked every now and again, this is a different team. But I think with the offensive line we have now, with how solid everybody is, this makes the Jaguars a better team.
Yeah, I think the biggest wild card is going to be Cam Robinson, because I think we know what to expect from Norwell. We know what to expect from Can. We know what to expect from Linder. I'm expecting good things out of Jawan Taylor. He showed a lot of technique at UF. I watched a lot of him and went back and watched a lot of him, and he got this reputation for being a mauler, a big grizzly bear, when in reality he's more of a technician than he is anything. So I'm excited to see him, especially in the run game, man. He's a great run blocker. But Cam Robinson's really going to be the wild card because he only played in 2 games last year. He was trending in the right direction in 2017, but I mean, that's your left tackle, and he's probably the biggest question mark on the team. Do you have any concerns about Cam Robinson?
That's wild you say that, because I think Cam Robinson's one of the only people that we have on lock. I think what he showed in 2017 was he has potential to be a franchise left tackle. I really, really, really liked what he had to offer in 2017. I'm a little bit more skeptical on the inside because Andrew Norwell, what he gave you in Carolina, but what he gave us in Jacksonville during the time he played and the fact that he got injured, I wasn't necessarily blown away with how he played. And I don't think that, the contract matched the playing style. So I think that Andrew Norwell and AJ Can, I think, are the 2 guys to worry about more. And I think Jawan Taylor too, I liked what I seen from him. But as a rookie, it's a question mark. But I think Cam Robinson. I think he's one of our more for sure solid guys that we have.
Okay, AJ can actually graded out kind of decent last year. I'm according to PFF, he had a 60.6 grade, which was good enough to be third amongst the starters, day one starters, which isn't great, but I mean it's.
But you also got to think too, AJ can played more than any of the starters last year. And the fact that he's still ranked third out of the original starting five, that speaks volumes there.
But doesn't durability mean something on the offensive line? The fact that he played in 15 games, doesn't that isn't that a plus for him? I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been the biggest AJ Can critic of anybody, but at the end of the day, the dude played 934 snaps. I mean, that's way more than anyone else. So that's got to say something, right?
And the durability I get. And, they gave him the contract extension. We talked about, me and Jagoff talked about that. He got the contract extension. So, I mean, obviously they see something in him. And durability, like you said, plays a factor, but almost I know I would almost play Tyler Shatley in there. I know that he's more of a center guy and he's our utility guy, but I mean, and even Will Richardson, I think that if Will Richardson sticks out at tackle, I think that he has more of a struggle. And I think if he moves over to guard, I think he has a chance. Because I don't like AJ Can, man. I don't.
I'm with you, but look, I mean, really, Will Richardson. I mean, the guy hasn't done one thing to show.
Well, I mean, just for him personally to get a better opportunity, not necessarily to start.
Man, I don't know. I watched the guy at NC State, and he looked bad. I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. I never like to talk bad about anybody, but the guy looks like he just leans on people. He has no hands, he has no feet. I really am blown away. I chalked it up as Doug Marrone knows offensive linemen, so he's got to know something that I don't know. And I was I'm cool with that. But the dude didn't play a snap last year.
Well, that's the thing too, is that there obviously has to be something that they're molding out if he didn't play last year.
Or he's just bad.
That was wild to me. But you think if he was just that bad, we didn't draft him. What was it, 4th round? Someone we got him last year.
Yeah,
I guess that's kind of high. But you would think if he wasn't worth it, we would have just got rid of him. And they just didn't play him at all. That was one of the biggest confusing question marks for me last year. Is that Will Richardson, with all the injuries, he didn't even get a chance.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you on the Tyler Shatley thing. I think Tyler Shatley is a really good player. Played 12 games last year. Graded out really high in pass blocking, 70.3, pretty good. But his run blocking grades were abysmal, bad, 52.2. Oof, that's kind of a liability. I mean, I like Shatley, man, but that's a liability if you got Fournette back there. I mean, that's bad.
Well, now I realize that maybe it was a semi-bold take to say that I would take Shatley to start over Can, but I think Shatley is what he is. I think he's a great utility guy. When people get hurt, he comes in, he plays well. And AJ Can showed some flashes in 2017. He was probably that year too, one of the weaker points of our offensive line, but he showed that he has potential to be good. And I'm hoping with this new contract and new incentives that AJ Can is that guy this year and that he can be a part of this offensive line and be a solid piece. But from what I've seen, I don't know, it just seems a little unlikely to me.
All right, let's move on to wide receivers / tight end, because there's not a lot there at tight end to talk about. But what are you expecting out of the receiving group?
I'm expecting Marquise Lee to be the Jags comeback player of the year. I know that we had this talk before about ACL tears and that they're hard to come back from and all this and all that. And I agree with that. Definitely. That's true. But, I think once he finds his footing, he may not be dominant week 1, week 2, but I think week 3, 4, when he gets back into the swing of things, this is the Marquise Lee that we drafted. We had really high hopes on what Marquise Lee could be when we drafted him all the way back in 2014. We gave him the extension because we're you're a cheaper option. We believe in you. Go do your thing. And I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be the leading receiver for the Jags this year. I think got guys like Dede Westbrook, who I'm not going to say I'm not high on him, but I'm not as high on him as everybody else. I'm not going to go out there and say that he'll be our number one guy this year and say that he'll get like over 1,000 yards, but I think he contributes. Chris Conley, too, I think is going to be one of the most intriguing Jaguars to watch this year. I think that out of all the position groups, like the wide receiver is like the most exciting position to look forward to next year, with maybe the exception of the quarterback position, but that's obvious.
So I kind of want to dig into this. You're not so high on D.D. Westbrook thing, and that you don't think he's going to get 1,000. I mean, he really didn't come on to the. He had a good week 3. But besides that, he didn't really come onto the scene till like week 11, and he had like 800 yards receiving. You don't think that guy can get 1,000 with Nick Foles?
I don't think any of these guys are 1,000-yard receivers, man. We've had this discussion. I think that Nick Foles is in a different – I think Nick Foles has always done one thing really well. I think that wherever he's at, he gets a lot of different people involved. Like in Philadelphia, whether that be Zach Ertz, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, all those guys. He has a bunch of guys in Jacksonville that are guys that he can get involved with. He's not going to be throwing to one guy all the time to be that 1,000-yard receiver because the Jags don't have that type of guy. He's going to be spreading the ball around, giving it to like everybody. Everybody's going to get involved. And I think even, guys like DJ Chark might be able to crack like the 400, 500-yard mark and like get deep down there and like be able to, just throw it to different guys. I don't think that any of these wide receivers stick out to me as dominant guys that Nick Foles, is going to throw 1,000 yards to.
Okay. That's fair. That deep down, I'm thinking it's going to take Marquise Lee at least a year to get back to where he was. And I'm not expecting much out of him this year. But hey, who knows? I mean,
no one really is, because that's the most flock I get when I talk about Jaguar receivers, is that I don't talk about D.D. Westbrook enough, and I'm always talking about Marquise Lee. I just think Marquise Lee, with what he does, and he's done it longer, I don't know. I think Marquise Lee just has a better outcome this year than D.D. Westbrook does.
Okay.
Again, not to say I hate D.D. Westbrook, because that's the total opposite.
Right. And I got to correct myself. He had 717 yards last season, not 800, but just to clear that.
You're the stat guy, Jason.
I am. I'm sorry. I get them all. They're all in my head. I went on a Texans podcast last week, and we just talked Texans Jags, and they were talking about how they're excited and they think they have the best receiving core in the league with DeAndre Hopkins, Kuti, and Will Fuller. Those are 3 solid receivers right there, but it kind of makes our receivers look a little pedestrian, honestly. DeAndre Hopkins alone, probably the best receiver in football. But, yeah, a guy like Kuti, a guy like Fuller, I mean, I don't know, man.
There's those are some injury-prone guys there.
That's true, and that's true. That's very true. And not to mention Deshaun Watson, injury-prone himself. So,
yeah.
It's we'll see what happens. But any quick thought on the tight end position?
Not
a big Jeff Swaim fan, not a big James O'Shaughnessy fan, or what?
I said this. If you're watching this and you want to watch one of my discussing videos, watch the one I do about the tight ends. I bring on this like 13-year-old kid. It was a dope video. I really enjoyed it. But like I said in that video, I'm not excited for like any of these tight ends. And this is a hot take, might be a weird one to you, but I think the battle for the true starter is going to be between Koyak and O'Shaughnessy. But I also think both of them have the best chance to get cut as well. It's a weird standstill. I don't think Josh Oliver fits what we're trying to do. Jeff Swaim doesn't. I would take O'Shaughnessy over Swaim. That's my personal take right there. I wouldn't, But then again, debating tight ends, it's like debating, who's better at freaking rec basketball. Like it's not even a thing.
I will mail you $100 if Ben Koyak is the number 1 tight end and at any point in the season.
I don't
crisp $100 bill if Koyak is a number 1 tight end next year.
I think that I think they're both, the most experienced guys. I don't like Oliver or Swaim. I don't like either one of them. I think that O'Shaughnessy is the guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of O'Shaughnessy. I've made that known in the past. Swaim, though, I mean, Swaim's got experience. Koyak couldn't even stick around last year on a team with Blake Bell and a team with who even knows what their tight ends we. I mean, we had Blake Bell out there making plays. I mean, if Koyak can't make the team with them, I
don't know. I just maybe not starting tight end per se, but I guess me saying one of them is going to get cut is right. So I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think Koyak gets cut pretty easy, to be honest. All right, so let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, and you know what? Before we do that, we're gonna tease the defensive side of the ball. We're just gonna take a break on the podcast because we have to put in ads.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So this is just officially our break, but we're not gonna actually take a break on the video. We're just gonna on the podcast. This is our break. So make sure to follow us on Twitter, Another Jags Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Another Jags Podcast. You can follow Treeb at
Treeb Talks on YouTube and Treeb Talks on Twitter.
All righty. Awesome. Cool. So we'll be right back after these commercials. And we're back on the video. What's up, Treeb? I'm sitting here with Treeb. You doing all right?
Hey, I'm honored to be here. It's been a long time in the making. I'm glad to be on here.
If you jumped in the podcast in the second segment, which makes no sense, and you probably wouldn't, then I'm here with Treeb, one of the best Jags YouTubers out there, committed, knows the game, watches the team, lives in Idaho.
Yep.
But still is committed. You can tell by if you can't see if you're listening to the podcast, but if you go on YouTube and you watch our video, you can see his background in his room he's recording in. Very Jaguar-esque. I like the old school logo. What's that little flag in over your right shoulder at the bottom? I like that.
At the bottom, the warning sign right there?
No, the other side.
Oh, those are both fucking the stadium pictures from 1995. My dad got that for me Christmas when I was 10 years old. And it's actually crazy because if you watch any of my first 5 videos, I actually had a Jaguar room when I was growing up.
Nice.
When I was 7. My dad painted the whole room, had the Maurice Jones-Drew fat head.
Nice.
That Maurice Jones-Drew saw my first kiss, so, definitely.
Wow. Look, my favorite Jag of all time is Maurice Jones-Drew, and my second favorite Jag is Jalen Ramsey, as you can tell by the background on my screen. But so how did you grow up a Jags fan in Idaho?
Well, so it started off with me really hating football when I was really young, like 7. My dad my brother was playing football. My dad was a big fan. And all I cared about was the WWE, and my dad didn't really like WWE, so they'd always watch football. And I was also into video games. I had a PSP back in the day,
nice.
PlayStation portables.
Oh, yeah.
Played Street 3, and that was the day I decided I'm going to decide to be a football fan. Random team picks up, it's the Jaguars. And the one player that I fall in love with and is my favorite Jaguar at the time was Byron Leftwich.
No.
Yeah, 100%.
No, you can't.
100%. He was OP in Street 3. He was unnecessarily fast. He threw on the run perfectly. And then I went up to my dad, and I was like, I'm a Jaguars fan. I love their quarterback, Byron Leftwich. And my dad's like, I don't think they have him anymore. I think they have this David Garrard guy. And I'm like, what? They got rid of him?
Wow. Well, that's an interesting story of how you became a Jags fan. I
like to tell it. I've told it on my my live streams like way too many times at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, glad you're a Jags fan because now I got another YouTuber that I can converse with because this is great. We've done a couple channels. We've done a couple shows together.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and there'll probably be more in the future. So
yeah, I mean, most of them it's on my channel too. Like our discussing wide receiver video is one of my it's my second most popular one behind the one with UCF.
Nice. I didn't even know that. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, ours is at, I think it's at like sitting at 400 views.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm sure 200 of them were me, so that's pretty good.
And then of course, UCF, the king of Jaguar YouTube, had to be 1K.
UCF, man, he's a nice guy, man. He's
a great dude.
Yeah, oh man, good guy. He's committed. You love to see it. All right, so let's jump into the defense. We talked about the offense in the first part kind of quickly, but let's talk about the defense. Obviously, it's the pride of our team. It's what we kind of are going to be leaning on this year. So what are you just generally speaking, what are you expecting out of the defense this year?
I think they still have the pieces there to be the best in the league. I think that top 5 for sure. I think it's going to be hard because I think that we're really going to feel the absence of Telvin Smith. I think now that the wave has kind of died down with the whole Telvin Smith thing, I think a lot of people are forgetting, like, we aren't going to have Telvin Smith, at least as far as we know, unless he pulls some trickery and comes back, but we're not going to have him. And the thing is if you watch anything like from his – ever since he's been a Jag, I think we got him in 2014 too. You know, he has been basically our entire like defense. He's like 100 tackle guy. He's a leader. He's vocal. He's sideline to sideline speed. He's elite. Like he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And it sucks that he's going through this. And I think it's really going to put a damper overall on the defense, but not enough because there's still like insane playmakers all over the field. But I think we're going to feel the loss of Telvin Smith for sure.
I like Telvin Smith. He's one of my favorite Jags to play. The energy he brings is great. But we can't ignore the fact that he had one of his worst seasons ever last year. And
yeah, I know. And I'm the first one to admit that because I was the first one to flip him shit. And that's true. Like he had a bad season, but I mean, even like in his bad season, he was still able to make like insane athletic plays. Like,
yeah, I mean, he made good plays. And again, I love athletic players, but here are some things that we have to mention. His PFF grade, 65.2, worst since his rookie year. 21 missed tackles, second amongst linebackers. Amongst linebackers in the NFL, second most missed tackles. Like I know we're gonna miss him, but I wonder how much of his like mental state was affecting his play last year because that is bad. I mean, 65.2 grade in coverage, 65.2 grade in overall. I'm not sold on. I mean, his run defense grade 64.8. I mean,
you know, and I think a lot of that can be chopped off to how he was mentally, and I think just to the whole team, like overall last year mentally, like that one thing that I like to talk about that just basically represents the 2018 season perfectly is that Derrick Henry, like 99-yard touchdown run. Do you really think that this Jaguar defense, like with all the stars we had, like is going to let Derrick Henry pull off some tomfoolery like that? Like this was just – the team was at a really bad state like last year, whether that be like Telvin off the field or, you know, guys not getting paid, guys not, you know, believing in Bortles. Like we don't know exactly what was going on in that locker room, but that team was kind of – it was torn to shambles last year.
To be fair, though, like if I'm a coach and I'm scheming against the Jags and you show me their defense, you show me Telvin Smith, you show me Miles Jack, you show me Yannick Ngakoue, AJ Boye, Tashawn Gibson, Ronnie Harrison, and you're like, all right, even Jalen Ramsey, and he's an outlier because he's obviously a god. But if you're giving me that defense and I'm an offensive coordinator, I easily am going to tell you we're going to run the ball down their throats. They're light at linebacker. They're fast, and they get upfield on the D-line, and their defensive backs like to cover and man. So I'm going to run the ball every single play. So when you tell me that Derrick Henry goes off on this defense, it doesn't surprise me at all because we're small on defense. And adding Josh Allen isn't making us any bigger. And I think, I mean, Ngakoue was not good against the run. Telvin was not good against the run. That game you're referring to against Tennessee, I guess Telvin had a 29 tackle rating in that game. 29. That's like fail. Can you imagine if you got a 29 in one of your classes?
It's happened before.
English 1101 or whatever.
I took English 10 in 12th grade.
But I mean, it's like it doesn't surprise me that teams are running the ball down our throat, and it's like,
okay, maybe that was not as good of an analogy per se, but basically what I'm saying is that the scheme part I get, run down the throat or whatever, but I'm saying that there was so many plays that the Jags let happen last year that you could tell, like, mentally, like, all those players weren't there. That's what I'm trying to say, is that, like, it seems like, you know, they weren't as into it as they were last year. Like, there's a lot going on. And I think that now that this year's coming, I think that we're going to be able to kind of piece it together, but we're going to be without Telvin Smith. And, you know, he's one of our outspoken leaders. And it's weird. It's weird. It's so hard.
How much of that, like the defense taking a step back, how much of that do you attribute to the offense not being able to get a first down?
Well, a lot. Like, I think that a big part of the reason this Jaguar defense wasn't, you know, it was letting off so many big plays. I think Todd Wash definitely called some bad plays. Like, if we run like at the same amount of zone we ran last year, like this year, like, I'm gonna freaking blow my brains out. Like, there's that, and then, you know, there's this offense that is literally one of the worst offenses I've ever watched play football, and they know that, like, Blake Bortles is the quarterback, and they know no matter what they can do, like, it's not going to be able to be enough. Like, I'm sure that definitely weighs down, especially on, like, a unit that is as good as the Jaguars' defense is.
Yeah, I agree. What's funny is when we look back at 2017, I'm a big defensive guy. Coach defense, love defense. We played man, like straight cover one man on every meaningful snap. Every once in a while they would kind of try to throw someone off to like get like a interception or a sack. And sometimes when they were like up big, they would drop into like a zone to like just kind of finish the game out. But every meaningful snap was like, I would say 90% of the meaningful snaps were cover one man. And it was just everyone manned up. And when they tried to do that this year, the linebackers couldn't cover the slot and the backs the way they could in 2017. And some of that was because of the pressure, not getting pressure to the quarterback. And some of that was the defense as the linebackers taking a step back. Part of that was Puzz probably not being there. But they're going to have to figure something out because the cover one man scheme didn't work at the beginning of the season. The zone scheme didn't work. We couldn't stop the run. Like I'm more subscribe to the fact that the offense couldn't stay on the field and the defense was out there every play, getting turnovers, and then Blake was turning it over and they're back out there, and that just demoralizes the defense. So I don't know. I mean, this could be a totally different team than we thought from last year, or it could just be 2017 was a fluke. And I hope it's the former, but it's really hard to know at this point, you know? So.
Well, who are you thinking? Who's going to be the linebackers next year? You're thinking then?
So we're going off of last year. I think they played nickel almost 60% of the snaps. So We're looking at who's going to play that third linebacker 40% of the snaps. I think you're going to see Ryan. What's his first name? The linebacker we signed.
Oh, Jake Ryan.
Jake Ryan. I think you're going to see Jake Ryan play that 40% there. And then I think you're going to see Hayden playing the nickel back. And I think we'll be in nickel more than we'll be in base 4-3. Not to mention that Quincy Williams can come in and play in the box as a linebacker or the nickel guy. And I think you'll see him kind of play some snaps. But most teams play nickel more than they play base 4-3. So
what do you as a film guy, have you seen anything from Quincy Williams? Because I'm trying to I only see his highlight tape on YouTube, and that's not enough to go off of, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Unfortunately, there's no tape available to us that is anything other than that highlight film. And the highlight film looked like he plays safety in the box, which is not traditional to our defense. So I'm not sure what they thought they were going to put. And he comes downhill and he hits you with the crown of his helmet. So besides that, not much to know. I mean, I remember thinking watching the highlight film, if you haven't watched it, you should. It's like every other hit is like, that's a flag in the NFL.
For real. I noticed that too, dude. That's what I was thinking. I was like, he's going to fit right in with this Jaguar defense. I don't know if we did, but we were probably up there with leading the league in personal fouls last year, probably in the last 3 years, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Doug Marrone gets the reputation of not being able to control his locker room. And it's like, is it, and I'll ask you, is it Marrone can't control the locker room, or is it the players we bring in tend to be the type of player that get those excessive after the whistle penalties or whatever they are?
It's totally it's a mixture of both. So I think that Doug Marrone is kind of, I don't think he has as much control over, like, I mean, he's a head coach in the NFL. Like, he has the control or whatever. But
Right.
I think Tom Coughlin is more the guy that this locker room is turning their backs against. I don't think that Doug Marrone's losing the locker room. I think Tom Coughlin's more to blame with that locker room and how it is. And there's also definitely some guys that are like that. Like, you can't tell me Jalen Ramsey is not the type of guy that's like going to be barking at you and looking to get, some sort of penalty like that. Like, these are guys that if you come after them, you're going to regret it, because they're going to come back after you, and you're going to have the whole team on you too. So
Yeah, I mean, Tom Coughlin is definitely a prehistoric.
yeah.
I mean, we'll call him like he runs the team, but I mean, they really, it seemed like it wasn't so much that they had the most penalties. I think they were top 10. I don't think they were top 5 in penalties, but they were just at really bad times. And it was just like, man, like that was like a touchdown if it wasn't for that penalty, or that was like a turnover. And it was like the penalties came at really bad times, or it was 3rd and long and it was like a pass interference. And it was like, man, it wasn't so much the amount of them, which was probably pretty bad. It was just so much the timing of them. And
yeah, for sure.
I think that does kind of go to, like you said, a mixture of the immaturity of the players. Doug Marrone's a great guy, and he's a straight shooter. I mean, he isn't going to sugarcoat anything. I've seen him at a bar up the street, sitting at the bar with like 3 entrees and a Bud Light, and it's like, dude, that's the type of guy I want to be the coach.
He's a football guy.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's like, man, I was talking about this on that Texans podcast, and it was like, I've never been a part of a team or seen it where they fired just the head coach. Like, can you think of a time that's ever happened where only Gus Bradley was fired and they retained literally every other employee?
Yeah. Well, that's what that's kind of what I want to talk about, is that, do you think Doug Marrone's on the hot seat this year?
I think because of him getting himself to the championship game last year, he's bought himself this year. But I think if he is bad this year, like he was last year, and I'm not saying him, I'm saying the team, right? The team he's running. If the team he's running is as bad as they were last year, I think he's gone. Absolutely.
Do you think they go after him, though, or do you think that they go after coordinators this year and then maybe get them next year?
I think they've already done the coordinator route.
I think they've done it way too many times.
Yeah, I mean, they've already gotten rid of Hackett, and Hackett got picked up by the Packers. I mean, it's like – and it's I think they've already done the scapegoat thing. And I think this season is Coughlin and Marrone's season. Even though Foles is locked in for a number of years, I think this is it for those two guys if the team doesn't rally.
Well, what do you think about Todd Wash? What are you thinking? You think he's got a seat at the table no matter what, or do you think he's kind of in jeopardy also?
I'm never, ever one to blame coordinators, ever.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if you're a coach at that level, you know what you're doing. I mean, you know what you're doing. Now, there are some coaches that get locked into their style, and Coughlin and Marrone are those type of people that get locked into their style of coaching. But coordinators, dude, those guys have been calling plays their entire lives. Like, they know what they're doing. I'm telling. So, yeah, Wash may get fired, but you know what? He'll get on somewhere else. Hackett may get fired, and he'll get on with the Packers. We see it time and time. Who is it? Jed Fish got fired and then got hired on somewhere, and it's like time and time again. Greg Olsen, the dude's OC now. I mean, it's like it's coordinators are like easily dispensable but easily rehired, and I'm not one to blame. I think Wash. If I'm Todd Wash, I'm calling man every play too. So I mean, you got Jalen Ramsey, you got Boye, you got a great D line. I'm manning up everywhere if I'm Todd Wash. So I mean, I can't blame the guy.
Well, that's what I'd be doing too. I don't know. I think that there was a lot of unfair criticism towards Todd Wash last year. I think that there were some times that certain things happened, but everything that was a big breakout play, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but all the players looked at each other like they were confused.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, definitely. I mean, but I mean, there's all those stories that came out about Jalen Ramsey, like deciding to randomly play man in a zone and things like that. Or, I mean, I watched plays where Tashawn Gibson was in cover 3, middle of the field safety, and he basically bit on a run play, and there was 2 safeties playing a thirds everywhere. And so it's like, well, you can't blame Todd Wash for
yeah, exactly.
Tashawn
Yeah.
Gibson running downfield and trying to make a play on the run when it was a play action.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's interesting this year. I think the most peaked interest I have is how well the safeties are going to do. Because I think that the corners are going to hold it down regardless.
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that have a lot of faith in DJ Hayden. I think he's a talented guy. And AJ and Jalen are obviously fantastic. So it's kind of going to depend on how they do in the back end. I like Ronnie Harrison a lot. I always have. But, full first 16, we'll see how he does. And, Jared Wilson, he's had his opportunities when he came in, but that's basically been the, biggest what if. And, and he's not even a guy that's kind of earned that spot. So there's not to say that he will be the starter, but it should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Hayden is consistently solid. I mean, he grades out about 75 every time he's playing. Gerard Wilson, though, the guy's good against the run, good in special teams, but he finished the season with a 68 coverage rating. And look, I say all this, and I know full well that PFF grades are not biblical, and they are not the end-all, be-all. But they do kind of give you a sense of kind of what was going on. Like Jalen Ramsey's PFF grade wasn't really all that great last year. And we know there was a lot of plays that he doesn't get credit for according to them that we know that he did. Like the fact that quarterbacks won't look his way, he doesn't get points for that, but we know that he shuts down number 1 receivers. But still, if you're a safety in the NFL, you want your coverage grade to be at least a little bit higher than 68. So I am hesitant to trust Gerard Wilson. I tried to go back and watch him at Michigan, and even then, he just kind of seemed like a guy who could play well in the box. And it's I mean, I don't know. He's got good size. He's athletic, but he just kind of strikes me as an NFL special teams guy, not really a strong safety. So,
well, you see, that's kind of my thing is that if he just does his job and he does enough, I think that this defense around him is good enough to where we won't be watching Jags games and thinking, oh, Jared Wilson sucks, or oh, Jared Wilson blew that play. I think he's gonna benefit from those around him.
But I mean, we really, you can't forget that Gerard Wilson and Ronnie Harrison are kind of the same position. They're both kind of strong safeties. So I imagine that Ronnie Harrison will move back into that free safety role.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Play that deep third or the deep quarter, whatever it is. But so that means that Wilson's going to have to be covering tight ends man to man and man. And look what happened when we played the Colts and they had 200 yards receiving from the tight end in the first half. Yeah. And it was like, man, and those were guys like Barry Church and those were guys like Tashawn Gibson. I mean, he's young and the coaches like him, and you have to sacrifice somewhere when you spend $88 million on your quarterback and you have a really expensive offensive line. But I hope that he's serviceable. And not saying he's not going to be, but I think all Jags fans, their big concern is going to be him in the back end. So.
Well, and another concern, I just want to get on this real quick because I think that you're right that most people are all talking about the safety position. How concerned are you with tight ends? Because that's everybody's just big and exploding freaking worried about it. But I'm not even worried about it. I can care less. If they contribute, they contribute.
Yeah, I mean, so I think everyone's getting on tight ends because of how good Ertz was in Philly. But we can't forget that most teams don't utilize a tight end the way that Philly did. You have Zach Ertz, you have Travis Kelce, and you have George Kittle. For a number of years, you had Rob Gronkowski. But outside of those guys, most teams don't have a tight end that like dominates. Like the Rams tight end. Does anyone even know who the Rams tight end is? Like, and the Rams were considered one of the best offensive teams last year. And you look at a guy like, or teams that, who did the Rams play? They played the Saints. The Saints, I mean, they didn't utilize Jimmy Graham, and tight ends are really overvalued. And there's a reason why that tight ends aren't drafted high. I mean, I think there's been, if you take out this year when both of the Iowa tight ends were taken, Hawkinson and what was their dude's name that played at Iowa? It was Font, yeah. Besides, before this year, there's been like 3 tight ends taken in the first round in the last like 10 years. And there's a reason why. Like tight ends aren't as valuable as people think. And they're flashy. And if you have a good one, you're really lucky. But in reality, there's 3 good tight ends right now, and that's it.
Well, that's exactly what you said my piece. You know, like
it's like I watched your tight end video or something.
You said my piece for that. You said it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. But I want to take I just want to take a quick little break for commercials, and then I want to come back and we'll finish it with just some like ranting, and then maybe just gonna talk a little bit to each other.
For ranting.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break. Another Jags podcast. You can find us on Big Cat Country. You can find us on the Overtime Podcast Network, and make sure to buy all of these things they're selling. It's usually podcasts they're trying to get you to listen to. So go download them, and then in the reviews write, "Hey, we heard this from another Jags podcast," and then you'll make us more money. So I appreciate that, and then we'll be right back. And we're back to another Jags podcast. We're here with if you jumped in the 3rd section of this podcast. First of all, I want to know what kind of lunatic you are to jump into a podcast 45 minutes in. But I'm here with Treeb, my guy Treeb, who you will see a lot more of in the future on this channel. I can guarantee you that for sure. We've talked offense, we've talked defense, and now we're going to talk a little bit about Treeb. Because a lot of people, Treeb has a nice following. We have a nice following, and we actually have a big following in England. I don't know how it happened. I don't know. Like, it's insane how it. I have no clue. But like a lot of our Twitter questions are like from England people, and I guess the Jags are big in England, but they probably don't know who you are. So tell us a little bit, Treeb. You're engaged, correct? Is that what's happened recently in your life?
Sir. Yes, sir. May 9th, 2020, come out, most electrifying event in history.
Yeah, all right. So do you have like your bachelor party set up or anything like that?
Well, you see, I have my best man. Shouts out to Bryce in the chat. He's been on the channel a couple times.
Nice.
He's supposed to be planning that bachelor party, and he's not very good at planning things overall. So I'm kind of hoping he figures that out once he does, once it comes close. But as of now, I'm kind of putting all my faith into his hands.
Oh, that's risky, and that's a lot of pressure. I can tell you, I've been a best man in a wedding. It's a lot of pressure. It really is. And I ended up spending a bunch of time and money on this person's bachelor party, and they went, but then didn't go out, and were not feeling good. I was like, dang, man, I was hyped up for this thing, man. But it's how life goes sometimes, and that's okay. So you're getting married. What was it you said, 2020? When in 2020?
May 9th.
All right. So ladies, you have about a year to change Treeb's mind on getting married.
Yeah, and I'm sure Bailey doesn't watch Jaguar podcast. Right. So come change my mind. Yeah.
And she's definitely not going to jump in 3rd segment.
Oh no, what kind of unlike the lunatics that actually did jump into the 3rd segment.
Yeah, exactly. So you've been doing YouTube's. How long have you been doing Jaguars YouTube consistently?
Consistently now for a year. Okay. A year and a couple months.
A year. And what is your ultimate goal? Obviously, you want to be a big Jaguar YouTuber, but what about your personal life? Tell us a little about your personal life. What do you want to do? What are you working? Tell us a little bit.
So I currently work at a radio station, and what I do is I make commercials, and I I write for their website. I'm basically like the do-it-all person. They kind of just throw everything at me. I do like traffic for those commercials. And,
Okay.
it's fun. It's a 40-hour a week full-time job, and it was better than what I was doing before, where I worked 2 jobs and it was like 2 to midnight, and it's just I hated it. But now we're in full-time. End goal for me is that I want to be a play-by-play commentator.
Really?
I'd like to do play-by-play. That's always kind of been what I wanted to do. But, as of now, I also kind of just don't want to work for anybody. So,
Right.
I'm kind of trying to build the YouTube channel. We are 4 subscribers away from 1,000 from monetization.
Wow.
So we got to do that. And then right now I'm dabbling in some film writing, and I'm trying to learn how to do some animation. So I'm trying to get an animated show out sometime in 2020. We've got a whole script working, and that's going to be brought to the channel too. Some new variation of stuff.
So you're just media well-rounded is what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, I worked right when I got out of high school. I worked at a news station, and I was in production. And then I was working part-time at my newspaper, where I wrote like 20 stories, and I got to write my editorial piece. Like, it was, so yeah, I've been pretty experienced. I decided to kind of go like the player route as far as journalism goes, kind of just get like the experience, get everything under my belt, and as opposed to go to college, which is probably the smarter route, but your boy was never very good at school. So
Okay. Well, there's always online classes, so don't totally discount that. But
yeah.
But it sounds like you're doing good, working in radio, worked with newspapers. So it sounds like you're kind of headed on the right direction. So that's good. So now we just need to figure out how to get you working for the Jags. And unfortunately, unless you're in Jacksonville, I don't think there's going to be a lot of options for you in Idaho, in South Idaho, by the way, in South Idaho, to
Northern Idaho, actually.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Northern Idaho, to get a job for the Jags. But we do appreciate all your videos. I know I'm a big fan. I've been watching all the segments from the beginning because Jaguar YouTubers, we're kind of like this kind of close-knit community, and we all kind of know each other. We're all friends. So I'm really looking forward to doing some more stuff with you in the future for sure. So.
Well, my end game actually is that to end my discussing segment is that I'm going to have one of these. This is breaking news from Treeb Talks too, by the way. Oh,
wow. In segment 3? That's bold. That is bold.
Segment 3. So I haven't asked everybody yet. I've asked a couple of people, but so what I want to do is I want to have everybody that I had on and just a big video chat like this, like a Google Hangout or whatever, and then just give our season preview. So it'll be like probably like because there's going to be like 8 or 9 of us. So like
that sounds like madness. That sounds like absolute madness.
Yeah, probably like a 3-hour podcast. I think that like the people that watch the Jaguar content, like my content, your content, UCF's content, whatever, like I really think that they would love that. Like,
my God, absolutely.
I think because like you look at like any like I don't know, do you watch any YouTube at all?
Absolutely, man. Mainly just like, Jaguar stuff.
So like when your favorite YouTubers like get together and they make it, like it makes your whole entire life. So like I mean even like with this small like community, I think like, and if we did it like live too, like I think that a lot of people would come in. But that's kind of what I'm trying to do to close out that series.
Well, we should do that, man. And I'm down whenever, obviously. And we both have some pretty good setups here as far as recording. And we need to hook you up with a better microphone, but we can work on that. But hey, you know what? Maybe when's your birthday? Like when's your birthday? Is your birthday coming up?
December 28th.
Okay, no, so it's around Christmas. So maybe Santa Claus will drop you off a little microphone one day. Maybe, you never know. We'll see what'll happen there.
Jason, just because you're 9 years older than me doesn't mean you got to patronize me, you old.
Hey, you know what? I've been known to be a little Santa sometimes. Here and
oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be dope. I mean, are you usually the youngest guy in your podcast?
I am usually the youngest guy in the podcast. Yeah.
So is it hard to be the old man in the room right now?
No, not at all. Because because everyone that on our podcast that's ever been on like wishes they had my life, like living the bachelor life, like doing whatever I want, like literally whatever I want. So like here, I'm just trying to impart some like wisdom, and I'm trying to
there we go.
yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to, bestow a blessing upon you. So maybe Santa will hook you up with a microphone here coming up soon. So just make sure you do an unboxing on your channel for
Oh, dude, if Santa gives me a microphone, I'll be doing a freaking unboxing video. I was thinking too, your bachelor life, man. I even envy you.
Yeah, well, hey, it's a choice, everyone has the option. That's what everyone always tells me. Like, man, I wish I wasn't married. And it's like, well, I've chosen not to get married, So it's
I don't want people to think I'm serious. I love Bailey. I'm glad we're getting married. She's in the other room, so hopefully she won't yell at me when this is over. But
this is segment 3, bro. I think you're all right. Okay. Well, Treeb, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. Plug everything you have one more time for us.
All right. Here in segment 3, even if there are only 4 of you listening in segment 3, which there probably is only 4 of you listening in segment 3, make sure you subscribe to Treeb Talks. We're 4 away from getting monetized. It's on YouTube. If you like me on Facebook at Treeb Talks, follow me on Twitter at Treeb Talks. You can follow me on Instagram at Trayvon Pixley as well. Those are my links.
All righty. Well, and we're here at another Jags podcast. My mouse is dead. So I'm not going to be able to turn the podcast off. Let me see here. But I appreciate it, Treeb.
All night podcast.
Yeah, it's going to stay on all night. Another Jags podcast. As always, go Jags.